Painting comes from Stabiae, a harbour town near Pompeii. Let's describe it. We see a harbour on the coast, with an arched pier jutting in from the right midground, a pier from the left, and a wharf in the background. In the centre foreground, we see a rock with a sea cave on its right. An angler fishes from its top, whilst two figures prepare to launch a canoe into the shallows to the right, to join two other rowboats, already enjoying themselves to the right. A courting couple observe them from the shade of a porticoed building on the pier to the left. There are lone columns carrying statues on the pier to the right, and three more ranged along the docks in the right background. A line of horia, or warehouses, lead off the right pier and back towards the docks behind, where dockers offload cargoes from three moored ships. In the background, we observe that Stabiae is a bustling town, with many buildings, temples, and busy streets. A pair of figures, on the pier to the right, seem to be startled by the emergence of a diver in the middle of the choppy harbour. He has just emerged from the surf. Is it a diver with a trident, or Neptune himself? What style is it? It counts as an example of the third, or ornamental style, which lasted from circa 20 BC to the earthquake in AD 62. Painters of the third style treated the walls as blank canvases, as opposed to windows onto a distant space. It was art for art's sake. Second style architectural motifs disappear or drift to the background, such as the town of Stabiae in this case. It provides a backdrop for a narrative scene, onto which the blue monochrome background, again, typical of the third style, directs our gaze. There is something quaint about this painting, almost romantic. It depicts the tranquility of country life, in this case, the quaint goings-on at a provincial harbour. We see fishermen, punters, a courting couple, dockers busy at work, and people strolling along the piers. All quaint people, doing quaint things, in a quaint place. A movement in Roman art, ascribed, by Pliny the Elder in his Natural History, to an Augustan artist called Spurius Tadius. Et in Arcadia, ego. Even I, was once, in Arcadia. It's a reference to mortality. It became a theme in art during the late Renaissance. The simple herdsman of Arcadia gazed cluelessly at a grave and contemplate, for the first time, that everything mortal, dies. Arcadia, the highland home of the Greek god Pan. It was a backward place in ancient Greece. They even spoke an archaic dialect of Greek in classical times, and for a time, even continued using Linear B script. But the Romans looked back with rose-tinted glasses to Arcadia. It was a quaint place, full of quaint people, who did quaint things. It's like Irish people who dream of ditching their expensive houses in Dublin and moving to the island of Innisfree, or to Connemara, for a simpler life, in a log cabin, wearing Aran jumpers and distilling their own poutine. Never mind the wind, the rain and the fact that the land is barren. To the city slicker, or that is, quaint. It's escapism. In the 18th and 19th centuries, English artists like Constable began painting such quaint people, doing quaint things, in quaint places. The paintings were often bought by well-to-do townsfolk, who dreamed of escaping the smoggy, noisy, congested industrial cities like Manchester or Liverpool, and escaping to a simpler Arcadian life in the country. Jump back to the thriving Oscan Wall Market of Pompeii, with its noisy, smelly, narrow streets, and you can see why a patrician owner of a domus might pay a wall painter to paint something romantic on his walls. Spurius Tadius was one such Roman wall painter, that we know of, who painted such scenes. The romantic tone of these paintings is strikingly familiar, when you consider the romantic movement in art. It's always interesting to compare them. Take this painting for instance, from the Villa of Agrippa Postumus, near Pompeii. Wheeler shows us a black and white photograph, but here it is in color. Shepherds water their goats by a pond, whilst another sits, almost regally, by a monumental column against a tree in the center. In the background, we can see city walls and a temple. These herdsmen are outside the city, in the peace and quiet of the countryside. There is something almost sacred about the way in which the landscape is treated. It's unspoiled and idyllic. It's a desire we recognize when we look at 19th century romantic paintings. The serenity of the moors in this case, but the same idea is at work. Here is another pastoral scene from Pompeii. Again, we can see the same desire to escape to an Arcadian lifestyle, herding goats in the mountains by quaint shrines, or Roman ruins in this case from the 19th century. How do we know what style they are? They count as examples of the third, or ornamental style, which lasted in Pompeii, from circa 20 BC to the earthquake of AD 62. In the ornamental style, walls are treated as blank canvases, as opposed to windows onto distant space. Second style architectural motifs therefore disappear or drift to the background, providing backdrops for narrative scenes, like the city walls, temple and column in the painting from the Villa of Agrippa Postumus, near Pompeii, on the mountain shrine in the pastoral scene from Pompeii itself. These structures provide backdrops for narrative scenes, pastoral scenes in both these cases. Herdsmen with goats. Again, typical of the third style, monochrome backgrounds direct our gaze onto the narratives. The figures are merely sketched in with economy of detail. Impressionism was another feature of the third style. The emphasis was more on mood and theme, rather than on form. The Roman artists present us here with the sacro-idyllic landscape, to which we yearn to escape, wherein quaint people do quaint things in quaint places. The peace, simplicity and serenity of herding goats in the countryside, taking the air and relaxing in the cool breeze, contrast with the humdrum life of a bustling industrial city like Pompeii. We finish our examination of third-style paintings with the vignettes. As I mentioned at the start, large panels were accompanied by smaller ones in the third style. These small panels were often used as vignettes onto a sacro-idyllic landscape. Again we recall Pliny, who ascribed the habit of painting landscape gardens, parks, meadows, people fishing and hunting and lounging around fine country houses. Here are 4 examples of such houses, all from Pompeii, and to introduce the painting of such scenes, Wheeler says, on page 134, from the constricted environs of the city we turn our attention to the countryside. There, ranging from crofts to immense palaces, were the houses of small farmers, the agents, and the rich owners for whom the country was part occupation and part divertisement, a quiet setting for good food and good talk. In Arundel, we see a luxurious 2-storied coastal villa. Here it is in color. A lovely home indeed. The next 2 show 2 more country villas, and this one, from the house of Lucretius Frontinus, shows a villa that sports a polygonal portico, popular from the time of Augustus on, and especially popular during the reign of Nero, to which time many third-style paintings date. The Sun Court is purely aesthetic. It is non-functional, built purely for show. And as a means to introduce this painting, again from Pompeii, Wheeler says on page 136, at the same time, to complete the picture, we must visualize here and there upon the landscape, a scatter of primitive round huts of the prehistoric kind, where, as in much later centuries, herdsmen and charcoal burners continued to live traditionally on the fringe of the forests and the downs. And so we see the simple peasants, the plebs, in their simple huts, chatting, going about their business, whilst pet dogs go about theirs. Like Homer, who was as interested in King Menelaus's hospitality, as he was in that of the lowly swineherd Eumaeus, the Roman artist demonstrates that he is as much interested in the lives of the poor herdsmen and charcoal burners who lived on the fringe of the forests and the downs as he is in the lavish homes of wealthy patricians. Both were sketched in with economy of detail and treated as walking, talking, living people with their own intrinsic worth and stories to tell. This impressionistic landscape featured both the palaces and villas of the rich as well as the rustic huts of the poor. The Roman artist was interested in both. Just as much as the 19th century impressionist Manet was interested in the lavish dejeunes of the gentry, as Degas was in the mundane work of floor scrapers. The Roman wall painters painted it all. Not much has changed, has it? That concludes our examination of third-style wall paintings. The next, and final video in this series, will walk you through the fourth, or theatrical style.